Hey guys, welcome to another video about Poppy Playtime. We're going to be reacting to a video from a year ago. I think I may have saw this one in the past. I think, maybe not. I've seen a couple of the game theory videos from around this time. This was before, I was reacting to them. But anyways, we're going to react to this one. I solved the Hour of Joy. Yeah, let's get into it. I reacted to three other game theory Playtime videos. If you guys keep enjoying them, they've been doing decent in views, so I'll keep doing them if you all like them. So yeah, make sure to hit the like and subscribe. But I'll link more. I'll put the link to get this video in the description and all that. Okay. Anyways, let's get straight into it. I'll get into full screen.
The Hour of Joy was an inside job. You heard me
No
right.
way.
Poppy Playtime's biggest and most consequential event didn't just happen because the toys wanted to rebel one day.
Yeah.
It all hinged on the help of one employee. And I know exactly who it was.
I think I know who he's gonna go with, but
Hello,
we'll
Internet!
see.
Welcome to Game Theory, the show that is on this VHS right here. But
Yeah.
to watch it, you'll need to hit that subscribe whatsoever. Today, we're diving, or should I say falling, back down the Bunzo Bunny rabbit hole that is Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. Last time we focused
by
on
now
how
we're in
this
Chapter
story
5,
is going
but
to end, with us sacrificing ourselves to save everyone, but in the end, we'll actually save no one. The prototype
about
would
ending in
survive and go on
2026,
to
'cause we
wreak
got
more
Chapter
havoc
6 coming on the
world.
horizon.
So with that
Probably
positive
27, maybe
outlook, and the
28.
fact we can't really look much further forward than that,
doubt
I
this
wanted
year
to
would be
instead
cool,
look
Could be
behind us
rushed,
to the
probably.
start
Little
of the
rushed, but they had the
prototype's
Xbox
plan,
version
the
come out
Hour
today,
of
May
Joy.
27.
The Hour of Joy is the moment from this franchise, the moment that separates the lore of Playtime's past from the games we're physically playing. And just like last time, thanks to Chapter 4, we have been given a few very small clarifying
Chapter 4
details
just
that tell us
ruined
exactly
a lot of
how the
theories,
Hour of
like,
Joy came
the
to
theater
pass. Because
incident
while the
being
prototype
when
is
Project
incredibly
Playtime takes
clever,
place
and while
instead
the
of the Hour
toys
of
are
Joy.
incredibly strong and hungry, it turns out they couldn't pull off this
Chapter
plan
4 had
on
16
their own.
VHS
They
tapes, when
needed
Chapter
help.
5 had
They needed
3.
someone
They had
who would
audio
go
tapes
along with
in
their weird
Chapter
plan.
5.
A plan that would
They had a lot
almost
of notes.
certainly backfire on them for doing so. Maybe watch your back, theorists.
Even though
As I
VHS tapes
mentioned,
are one of
in
the best
order
part
to
of the
look
series,
back
but
and
whatever.
figure out an earlier part of the franchise, we
Experiment
need to
814.
actually take a closer look at one
Well,
of
how they
the
have all
more
these
recent
notes
additions
next
to the
to the,
series and work backwards,
chapters
because
there
it's not
for,
really an indie
like, the
horror
game
franchise
station
if you're
for
not
Chapter 2.
retroactively adding lore to previous games with new ones. One
FNAF,
of the new VHS
Van.
tapes in Chapter 4 presents us with an image of a character we haven't really seen in a good while, a resource extraction specialist. These guys were the primary characters we played as in Mob Entertainment's spin-off multiplayer game, Project Playtime.
Here's the job. You need to collect toy parts to make a giant toy. Get that giant toy on the train, then leave.
Sadly, this game has largely been abandoned
I
by
actually
Mob
played
for
it
the last year and a
recently.
half, which
Well, I
was
mean by
a shame
recently,
because
like
it was a lot
February,
of fun to play.
Has anyone made a fan cam edit of Mommy Longlegs to I Am Your Mother?
But more importantly, it was surprisingly useful for lore purposes. The main thing for us was that the toys were running amok around the factory, which sounded awfully similar to what happened after the Hour of Joy, the big event on August 8th, 1995, where the toys finally rebelled against Playtime Co. and took over the factory. You can see the connection, right? The Hour of Joy happens, the toys take over, and so Leith Pierre, ever the businessman, decides to send these resource extraction specialists into the factory in order to keep their giant toy making operations alive, leaving them to fight off the giant toys that remained. That is the sequence of events that we've believed for a very long time. However, this Chapter 4 VHS tape tells us a slightly different story.
It changes
you see,
it,
these
the lore.
tapes aren't just different colors. They also have their own labels to help us identify them. Things like Break Time, which was the tape with the security guards being on break that we talked about in our last video. Most of them are pretty on the nose, and this resource extraction specialist tape is no different, because on it is a label that reads 93 Theater Incidents. If that name doesn't ring a bell, I don't blame you. We've only recently learnt about it during the Chapter 4 ARG. Man, Bob really did just hide
I remember
all
that when
lore
that
in this
came
thing,
out.
hoping people
What
would
was that,
solve it and pay
2024?
attention, rather than putting it somewhere like, oh, I don't know, in the actual game? I don't know what you're smirking at, FNAF. They learnt this from you.
Who taught you how to do this stuff?
You all right?
I learned it by watching you.
Anyway, where was I?
VHS tape
Oh
in
yeah,
hand.
the theatre incident. As the name suggests, the incident took place in the Playtime Co. Theatre.
one
From
of the
what we
main
could
maps
tell,
in
based on
Project
all of the
Playtime.
bird evidence photos we received, it was a fire that broke out and many people
But why
died.
does the
When the
theater look
incident
so,
was then
like,
investigated
nice
by
and
Playtime
polished
Co.'s
if there was
private
a fire?
investigator, it was determined that the culprit was none other than Harley Sawyer. These two
flash to
factors
the doctor.
made it seem like a separate incident from the one in Project Playtime. They did both share the theatre setting, but the ARG didn't give us any indication that the experiments were involved in the theatre incident. It was just Harley Sawyer going insane and causing a fire. Now though, we have this tape that not only confirms the resource extraction specialists were there because of the theatre incident, it also confirms that the experiments were loose during the theatre
Yep.
incident, just
Like
like they are
Project
loose in the
Playtime with
theatre
Huggy,
of
Mommy, and
Project
Boxy.
Playtime.
And are we just stopping the experiments back where they came from? Because I guarantee
It's cool seeing the
if
red
one
hand
of these
hand on the grab
always
pack
thinks just a
2.0
new
instead of the
concept,
1.0
over
or the new one.
60 visitors dead, or the dozen
It's
research
kind of a
extraction
time you
specialists
forget
who
you
went
have the red
swimming
hand.
in the bellies of
The
those
blue
things.
hand and red
It
hand are
just
the
lines
only
up
hand to be on
too
every version of the
perfectly.
grab pack.
Project Playtime is the direct result of the theatre incident.
So,
Harley
yeah,
let the
the
monsters
hour joy
out,
takes
they
place
ran
after
rampant
Project
across the
Playtime.
facility, killing a bunch of people and setting the
Oh,
place
the blood
ablaze,
splatter.
forcing Leith to create the resource extraction team in order to get the bigger bodies locked away once more. Now, this may seem like just a small change to our understanding of the Poppy Playtime line, but actually,
Poppy
this one
Playtime line.
alteration has massive ripple effects to other theories
the
we've
lore,
had
that was
over
cool.
the years. One example is the identity of the player character. Thanks to the orientation notebook, I
they're
had
gonna go
theorized
PW?
that its author, PW, a scientist
I
for
thought that
Playtime
for
Co,
a-
might be the player.
Okay, I thought that for a long time until, of course, well, I'm 6 minutes and 30 minutes into it, recording, 5 minutes and 46 into the video, of course. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked, but I originally thought it was PW too, because it made sense for the lore, but of course, of Chapter 5, we know from the restricted videos he was turned into, like, this version of Cappy, but, like, mixed with other toys. Either way, let's get back to it.
Character. They were able to write about the incident and the
not the
extraction
Hour of Joy, the
specialists.
theater
So if the
incident.
incident was the Hour of Joy, that would mean they had to have survived the Hour of Joy in
We've
order
actually
to
seen
talk about
PW's
it.
face
But if the
for the
resource
restricted
extraction team
videos.
was formed
That was
after
for the
the
Chapter 5
theater
ARG.
incident, as we are now being shown, that means PW likely suffered the same fate as their colleagues and didn't survive the Hour of Joy. Therefore,
Well,
they
technically,
can't
he actually
be the
survived
player
the Hour
character.
of
Now,
Joy,
there is still a
but-
chance that my theory is proven true
But
down the
game
line.
theory
We
didn't know
know
that
the
at
player
the time.
didn't show up for work that day and was likely involved in the experiments due to the hallucinations in Chapter 3, focusing on
Yeah.
their regret, and in Chapter 4, playing sounds from the lab at the end of the chapter, the
Wait,
place
what?
the experiments were happening. But right now, we just don't have any evidence that it was PW rather than just another scientist. And
should have had the
PW's
Omni
diary
hand on the
entries
second
do
part,
end
could
the
it be the
same
two
day
different
as the
red
Hour
hands,
of
but
Joy,
whatever.
so I'm not particularly hopeful. This would also snowball into the current status of Leith Pierre. Again, because PW was writing about Leith forming the team, we thought that meant Leith was alive after the Hour of Joy. But as this is now tied to the theatre incident, it's most likely that he too perished during the Hour of Joy like everyone else. However, the biggest change this has to our
know why they
understanding
showed
about the
Huggy and
lore
Boxy to
relates
make
to
it
the
look like they're gonna
VHS
say
tapes
theater
that we
incident.
received not in Poppy Playtime, but in
Doctor or
Project
something. It'd be
Playtime.
kinda
During
ironic
each
if the
phase, we
Doctor
received a
killed Leith
VHS
Pierre.
tape that contained recordings of Harley Sawyer and his Bigger Bodies initiative. But at the end of each of them, the tape suddenly changed to a text-based
say
message
because
from a
Leith,
mystery
but I could see
character,
him
based on their
surviving, but
use
then
of
he doesn't
plurals when
care
referring
about
to
the
themselves, them
experiment.
saying things like, "You made us this way," and their use of the same telephone that
Yeah.
Ollie used in Chapter 3, we believed this to be the prototype talking to
Of
us.
course,
Now that we
Ollie
know
is
the
the
Ollie we've
prototype.
been talking to is indeed the prototype,
And the
What did you do with
prototype
Ollie?
is Ollie Ludwig.
this feels all but confirmed. The thing is, we've never really been able to put our finger on why they're talking to us, other than to feed us fans more lore. There are
Yeah.
lines like, "You must prove yourself and we will call you when the time arrives," which felt like we were going to be part of some big master plan, though that didn't really make a lot of sense with Project Playtime being after the Hour of Joy. But now that we know this game comes before the Hour of Joy, and thanks to a special VHS tape from Chapter 4, things become much clearer.
Oh, I hit my microphone by accident.
There's fail-safes. security measures.
Where's the grab pack still
It's
switching?
impossible. Personal
Then
agendas
tape.
have long been the downfall of this company. Is it
makes sense.
unreasonable to believe they were conspirators?
This VHS is titled Warden Office 8/8/1995, the same day as the Hour of Joy. And despite there supposedly being a bunch of systems in place, the experiments have managed to get through them and commit the Hour of
someone.
Joy.
I think I
That,
know
my
who.
friends, is why the prototype is talking to us on the VHS tapes of Project Playtime. After the theater incident, they are looking for ways to kill everyone, to cause the Hour of Joy, but they need help from an employee. They are asking us to betray our colleagues and allow the
they're an
toys to escape
executive,
and
right?
kill everyone. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that the person watching the VHS tapes in Project Playtime is the same character as our player character in
Yeah,
Poppy
it could,
Playtime. And
but-
that's because of one crucial detail that
no,
we're
it can't
given
be.
in this VHS tape.
But without executive access,
Yeah.
how could anyone even get through?
It couldn't just be any old employee helping the prototype.
Had to be
It
an
had to
executive.
be an executive, someone
it's
with
Stella
access to the
Graber.
Omni-Hand. For a while, we felt like our player character could be one of the executives, but more recently, it felt like that was less and less the case. And then in Chapter 4, Harley said this.
I can't say I remember seeing your face before.
Harley knows the executives very well. That's
Yeah.
been clear since the beginning. So for us not to be recognized, we cannot be playing as one of the executives in the main series of games. But the person from Project
Unless if
Playtime
it's
that's watching the
Rich
VHS
Theory
tapes,
from
the
the
one
last
that is
Game
helping
Theory
the
video, check that
prototype
one out if
likely
you want.
is. And the best part,
Well,
I
Matt,
know
you can
which
check
one
out
it
his
is.
video
You might be
on the
thinking
one I
the answer is
reacted to on
obvious.
his-
Harley
You
is
can watch
holding a
this, a
big
link
grudge
in the
against
description
Playtime
if you want to see
though.
it without me talking. It's on you. You're a dead man. Yeah, I've heard this tape enough.
PW refers to him as one of the executives in the orientation notebook, and thanks to another VHS, we know he's been working with the prototype
What? That wouldn't
pretty
make
much since
sense.
Leith betrayed him and turned him into a discount FNAF endoskeleton.
Even when this place was fully operational, we were beating our heads against this.
So of everyone, he's the one with motive to betray the company. The thing he lacks, though, is the means of which to do so. He was an executive before becoming an experiment himself, but he was turned into an experiment to take away
the
some of his
executive
power.
access.
From now on, you're here to give the lab boys answers when they need them, and carry out procedures when and how we tell you to. That's it.
In that tape with the Warden, he doesn't currently have access to the Omni-Hand, and so is using the Hour of Joy to manipulate the Warden in order to get one for himself. But if it's not him, then who is it? Well, according to the Warden, only 4 people have the executive access necessary to pull off something like this. Leith Pierre, Stella Graber, Eddie Ritterman, and himself. Quick side note, but hey, look, we now know who the 4th slide was back in Chapter
the
2.
one that's
With the Warden being the
unspellable.
4th executive, it only makes sense that the 4th slide is his. So, good job, mob, another minor mystery solved. Although, I have a feeling they didn't give us his name because they realized coming up with a name using the letters they left on the floor doesn't really work, but I digress. With there being only 4
could
potential
easily change
suspects,
it,
it becomes
though, on the
pretty
floor.
easy to narrow
That's
down
fine.
which one is our Project Playtime
course.
accomplice. It
Fine.
can't be the Warden, as the VHS shows he's pretty scared and confused by the whole ordeal. You know, unless he's just the most incredible liar. But
Whether
we've
the
already got
Warden
plenty
of
of
the
those in this
prisons
series, so
and
I don't
executive,
think
I guess
mob's going to
Stella
want to go
Graber
back to that well
head of
too
game
often.
station
Right,
and play
Mob?
character
You don't
still.
want to go back to that
She's a
well
higher
too
access
often.
than
It's
that,
also
too,
unlikely
than
to
they
be
give her
Leith
credit.
Pierre, as he's all in on the Bigger Bodies initiative. He'd have
And
no
Eddie is,
reason
too.
to want it to fail. He even keeps the Doctor alive as a computer specifically because he needs him to keep the project alive. So Leith is also off the table. Before Chapter 4, we didn't really know a whole lot about Eddie, but in this chapter, we finally get to hear from the man himself, and he's fun.
I'm a businessman, Mr. Silver, and I don't like dead angry. I get paid to see that things get done. And this, like everything else, will
We'll get done.
get done.
Man, why does the British guy always have to be so unapologetically evil? That leaves us with Stella as our only remaining suspect. Stella has always been an intriguing character to me. Much like Rich, she's one of the few characters that's been around on these
Chapter
VHS tapes since Chapter 1. Her presence felt
It's
so
most
important
like
that in our
Stella
very
Graber.
first
That's what I
theory,
thought.
we suspected that she might have been the person turned into Poppy. We later changed our view on that due to some other evidence, and with this new chapter, it's very clear Poppy is Elliot's daughter.
I wish you were here, Dad. When you were
Poppy
running this
Ludwig.
place, you always knew what to say.
But that left Stella without any real role to fill.
Like a
And yet,
pencil
she
on,
is
like a
still
pencil
very
case or
present
something.
and being shoved down our throats. Like she does have
there
an
was no
important
VHS
role that
tape
we
with
just
Stella
haven't
Draper
figured
or
out yet.
Rich
Maybe
in chapter
this
5,
could be
like you
it.
heard about
Except thanks to
Rich,
another
but
VHS
still,
tape in
or
chapter
just
4, we
audio
hear
tapes
Stella
still.
talking to Leith about being completely on board with the Bigger Bodies initiative,
Weren't
just
even
like
notes, I don't
all the
think, unless
others.
I missed one.
The work itself, what you've all been able to do, I mean, it's nothing short of a miracle. That's a change I want to help make.
Yeah.
And like that, we are out
That
of
happens
executives,
before.
and Stella's role is once again left unanswered. Or it would be if it
After
weren't
the
for
timeline.
one thing: the timeline.
Yes,
In the
that's
Chapter
what I
3
thought.
ARG,
That's what
there
I
was a
thought.
note about the Bigger Bodies version of Catnap being introduced to Playcare. Stella has written part of that report, so this takes place after her meeting with Leith in the Chapter 4 VHS. And yet, despite saying in the meeting that this is for the greater good, her focus
Yeah.
is less on Catnap's effectiveness and more on how the kids were responding. She states that she actually doesn't want to use Catnap on the kids because it will scare them. And even despite the kids warming to him, she claims to, quote, still have reservations. While she said that she was okay with everything to Leith, really, she still wants to protect the kids. In the actual
Yeah, the
Chapter 3,
shield.
a VHS shows how excited she is to have one of the
Yep.
children adopted, only to realize that they are one of the children being used for an experiment.
Amazing. You'll be perfect for... Oh,
Oh.
it
Appears there's been some complications. What complications?
Forms as testing.
Testing,
You're in
yeah.
charge of all this.
How do you not know?
I don't. I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Now, there is a world where this
Chapter
tape
3
happens
tape.
just before the one we find in Chapter 4. That
not
this
touch the
incident
tape
is the
inside,
reason
it's
Leith
in
has to
house,
tell
that's
Stella what's going on. But listen to that clip again and pay attention to Stella's delivery.
You're in charge of all this. How could you not know? I don't. I'm sorry.
That I'm sorry is
Yeah.
what does it for me. She spends the conversation saying she doesn't know what's going on or what testing
does.
means. But her I'm sorry feels weighty, knowing even. She is the head of Playcare. She
Oh,
should
that's like a
know everything
fan-made
that's going on.
animation
And if she didn't,
with
I
the
don't
yellow hand, because of course we got the conductive hand, but it didn't look like the blue, red, or green hand, and Playcare. So I think it was like supposed to be a fan-made Chapter 3, but it's still kind of cool.
think she'd be
Maybe
keeping
like
her
Buggy
composure
Huggy or
quite so
something.
well. But she's not panicking or promising to resolve the issue. She just sounds crestfallen, defeated,
Yeah.
like she's had the realization that it's another kid she couldn't save, because she does know what testing means. Then finally, in the Chapter 4 ARG, right after the theatre incident, we get one more recording that shows us that Stella, once again, still cares for people.
Poor people. Did we really have to...
Did what was necessary,
We
Miss Granger.
shoots her down. I
Despite
guess.
supposedly being on side with Leith, she continues to question their violent methods and then stutters when trying to keep her composure. Because if she doesn't, she could end up like those poor people.
Word of this doesn't breathe beyond the factory's wall. I've made sure.
What we're seeing are the cracks in Stella's armor. She tried to get on board, to see things as Leith did, but she could never really justify Playtime Co.'s actions. The
Yeah.
theatre incident showed that the progress Leith had promised her wasn't being made. The kids were still becoming
candy
monsters,
cat.
but she also knew
Looks
there was
kinda
nothing
gross.
she could do about it, making her the perfect candidate for the prototype's
Type to use.
plan. After the theatre incident, Stella went
long
back
is-
to her
much is
office
left?
in
I'm
the
17 minutes
Playcare,
into
and
recording,
that is
about
when the
18.
prototype reached out
There's
through
like
the
3 minutes
tapes.
left.
He
Still on.
asked her to trust him and
Well,
sent her
boxes
his
are there.
iconic Ollie phone to feed her more instructions when the time was right. In the Phase 2 tape, the prototype recognizes that she wants answers from them and
Still
promises
Phase
they will
3.
come in time. If Project Playtime hadn't been unceremoniously abandoned, I believe we'd have seen those answers. They would have been the prototype telling Stella exactly what she needed to do and promising her what he'd promised everyone else, that
But
the
it couldn't have
orphans
been in
and the
Project
toys
Playtime
would all
'cause the
go
distraction
free,
team would be
escaping their horrible fate. All she'd have to do is use her executive access, the Omni Hand, to
On a blue
open the
hand
way
scanner.
for the
Oh, but
prototype
not
and
the
all
greatest
the
image,
toys
but
to
okay.
escape. And hearing that there was finally a chance to save the orphans without the wrath of Leith or Eddie coming down on her, I have no doubt that she would have accepted that deal. But as we know oh too well at this point, all of that was just another one of the prototype's lies.
I thought we were gonna leave the factory. Not this. Prototype says
we can't leave. Not now, not ever.
He lied to everyone about what the Hour of Joy was. The toys didn't escape. They killed everyone in the factory, and the orphans were locked away inside the prototype's lab. Just like Poppy, just like all the toys, Stella had the rug pulled out from under her. She was tricked, and based on how the prototype was more than willing to punish Poppy when she didn't agree with his motives, he definitely wouldn't have been above killing Stella too once she realized she'd been sold a lie. That being said, I'm not totally sure that's how Stella's story ends. I'll admit, this is a little more on the speculative side, but just like how I've been convinced Rich is going to be way more important to the actual games because he keeps showing up in VHS tapes in every chapter, I'm also convinced that Stella has to be more directly involved with the games rather than just being an off-screen character. If we think about it, she was in charge of Playcare. She cared for the orphans not just on an emotional level, but physically cared for them inside the facility. If the prototype wanted to keep these orphans alive for all these years, he might need someone with the skills and desire to help him do that. Stella had helped once before. She'd proven her trustworthiness, so why not have her continue to help him while he worked with the doctor to find whatever this secret is.
I'm still your best shot at cracking that secret.
And as for Stella, while she may not have appreciated being lied to, she saw what happened to anyone that opposed the prototype. We also know that when push comes to shove, she will bend the knee, just like she did with Leaf. I could easily see us entering the labs in Chapter 5, but when we find the orphans, it won't be the prototype we face.
We're not
It'll be
finding the
Stella,
orphans till
or
Chapter
whatever
6 if they're even
she's
alive.
become. But hey, that's just
Wuggy
a
Wuggy Bean
theory.
I remember
Game
this.
Theory. Thanks for watching. World premiere on Game Theory. We can not only figure out how exactly Chapter 5...
Okay, my video kind of just ended. Luckily, all of it saved just ended for some reason. But, yeah, I remember, like, after, what was this, 2022, I think? It was when Chapter 1 came out. I remember it being on the news. I do remember
That's
that.
just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching. World premiere on Game Theory. We can not only figure out how exactly Chapter 5...
I can react to that if y'all want me to, but if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. But bye now.